Hey guys, what's happening? Nihat here with Film Comics Explained. And as requested, today we're back with more Warhammer 40k lore, continuing our run into the twisted Chaos Gods. The Chaos Gods are the supernatural rulers of the Immaterium that have a great impact upon the events occurring in the physical universe. Numbered amongst the most powerful of the Chaos Gods are Khorne, the god of warfare, rage and murder; Nurgle, the god of disease, despair and decay; Tzeentch, the god of change and sorcery; and Slaanesh, the god of pleasure and excess. Occasionally, the Chaos Gods can set aside their innate rivalry and unite in the pursuit of a larger goal, such as the overthrow of the Imperium of Man and its Emperor, who represent the strongest current force for order in the Milky Way galaxy. During this time, the Chaos Gods serve a concept known as Chaos Undivided, the belief that each pantheon be worshipped equally. But most of the time, there exists a hierarchy of sorts within the ranks of the ruinous powers that ebbs and flows according to the vagaries of the great game for supremacy, fought constantly between the Dark Gods and their servants. Currently, in the late 41st millennium, Khorne is held as the mightiest of all, for the practice of murder and blood sacrifice stretches to the dark beginnings of the universe. Khorne is the blood god, an angry and murderous god of chaos whose bellows of limitless rage echo throughout the corridors of time and space. His great brass throne sits upon a mountain of skulls in the midst of a plain of splintered bone, and lakes of mortal blood fawn from the remains of his followers and the enemies slain in battle. Khorne embodies mindless and absolute violence, destroying everyone and everything within reach, shedding the blood of friend and foe alike. The followers of Khorne are always ferocious warriors that never make use of psychic powers, for the blood god abhors the trickery of magic and cowardly sorcerers, particularly the servants of Tzeentch. Men turn to Khorne for the power to conquer, to defeat their enemies in battle, to wreak bloody vengeance, and to attain unmatched martial prowess against all comers. The most fanatical and dedicated of his followers, those whose souls are trapped fully within his bloody embrace, know that he truly desires only constant and wild slaughter for its own sake. He cares not from where the blood flows, only that it flows without cease for all eternity. Though Khorne sees the use of psychic sorcery as the refuge of cowards, his closest rival, Tzeentch, thrives on the raw stuff of chaos and uses it to influence millions of plot lines, his devious mind always a step ahead of his opponents. Tzeentch is known by many titles across the galaxy, including the Changer of Ways, the Master of Fortune, the Great Conspirator, and the Architect of Fate. He is the Great Sorcerer, the god of sorcery and change, and master of the mutable stream of destiny and time. He is without question the most disturbing and least comprehensible of all the Chaos Gods. His skin crawls with constantly changing faces that leer at and mock all who look upon him. When he deigns to speak to other beings, these faces repeat his words, often with subtle but important differences of intonation and meaning. Plotters and schemers find themselves drawn to Tzeentch, especially those who crave psychic or sorcerer's power to achieve their goals. Politicians and leaders, magisters and chaos cultists all find themselves drawn along the convoluted paths of fate, using Tzeentch to achieve their dreams and aspirations, though ultimately all are led to play their part in his own eternal schemes. No man can fully comprehend the full nature of the intricately woven, multi-layered plots of Tzeentch, and to attempt to do so can only lead to insanity. Yet in reality, Tzeentch has no grand plan, no ultimate goal to fulfill. The mere act of plotting and entwining the brief fates of mortals is purpose enough. There is no end to his scheming, for he desires no end to the creation of change. Tzeentch can never achieve any ultimate aim, for to do so would be the end of ambition, and thus the end of the Lord of Destiny. Where Tzeentch would see hopes thrive and fortunes change, Nurgle, the father of plagues, revels in despair and hopelessness. In times of galactic pandemic, Nurgle's powers can eclipse even that of his dark brothers. Nurgle is the mighty lord of decay who presides over all physical corruption and morbidity. Disease and putrefaction, the inevitable entropic decline of all things, are the favors he bestows upon the universe. The god's immense body is bloated with corruption and exudes a sickly disease stench. His skin is greenish, leathery and necrotic, its surface pockmarked with various boils, running sores and infestations. From his exposed guts spill tiny lesser demons, his Nurglings, who dine upon the filthy fluids that ooze from Grandfather Nurgle's many festering wounds. It is to free themselves from despair, the eternal mortal dread of disease, starvation and death, that men turn to the Plague Lord. Despite his appearance, he is a warm, welcoming god who prides himself on the achievements of his followers, gifting them with his most hideous diseases while protecting them from all pain and the cold sleep of death. The fear of death can be found in the hearts of all sentient beings of the universe, and so there is no shortage of mortals willing to sacrifice their souls in return for the corrupted preservation of their physical bodies for all time. Last in the pantheon is Slaanesh, who knows well how to play on the obsessions of his rivals. Slaanesh is the youngest of the Chaos Gods, and the Prince of Chaos is divinely beautiful. He is as seductive as only an immortal can be, disarming and utterly beguiling in manner and irresistibly tempting with his words. Slaanesh can assume male, female, or any form at will, and it is impossible for a mortal to look upon him without losing their soul and becoming a slave to the whims of the Prince of Pleasure. Mortals that seek charisma and fellowship turn to Slaanesh, for his gifts can make one popular and inspiring. Poets and artists are drawn into his gaze by the promise of inspiration and fame, while even the hardiest warriors might seek the adulation of the masses and the ironclad loyalty of their followers. Yet as one continues in the service of Slaanesh, such pleasures soon grow stale, and his followers are driven on to search for greater sensations and self-fulfillment, until only the most decadent and debased of acts can stir their emotions or provide the pleasure they crave. Khorne's single-minded bloodlust, Nurgle's quest to infect every living thing, and Tzeentch's compulsion to dabble in the fates of mortals are all obsessions that the Lord of Excess can turn to his will with a whispered promise. While the Chaos Gods are all enemies in the Great Game, each bears a special enmity for one of their brothers in particular. Khorne most despises Slaanesh, whose earthly decadence and sensual lust are at odds with the Blood God's martial pride and desire for indiscriminate slaughter, while the Dark Prince finds Khorne's artless brutality dull and takes a perverse delight in agitating him. Similarly, Tzeentch's desire to foster the corrupt ambitions of mortals is at odds with Nurgle's spreading of despair and death, and so a special rivalry exists between the two. The first three Chaos Gods became sentient by the middle of the second millennium, but Slaanesh did not fully awaken until the fall of the Eldari in the 30th millennium, at the end of the Age of Strife. There is a fifth major Chaos God named Malice, who embodies the tendency of chaos to turn in upon itself. Worshipped as a renegade god of chaos and the hierarch of anarchy and terror, he acts against the interest of the other Chaos Gods whenever he can, though he is certainly no ally of the Imperium either. Though the four major Chaos Gods are the most well-known and the most likely to be worshipped individually, there also exists within the Warp a number of minor Chaos deities, including Ansel, Mo'Rok, and Frazetta. Named after Brian Ansel, Michael Mo'Rok, and Frank Frazetta, writers and artists have contributed to the Warhammer 40k universe. The Chaos Gods are rivals of each other, and the constant war between them mirrors the struggle between their followers in the material universe. This struggle for dominance over the Warp and the physical universe by the gods is known as the Great Game. The Warp is not merely the home of the Dark Gods, it is also their primary battlefield, the arena for this great game of supremacy. Since time immemorial, the Chaos Gods have warred with one another, vying for power amid the immaterial planes. Despite their differences, they have the same goal: total domination of the universe. There is no realm that they do not wish to claim for their own, and each wants absolute rule, with the mere concept of sharing power with another being abhorrent to them. With the ebb and flow of energy within the Warp, the power of the Chaos God expands and contracts, and his realm will shift accordingly. For longer periods, one god may dominate the others, fed by success and the leeching of energy from its foes, but eventually the other gods will team up against the dominant force to reduce him in power, until another of their number rises to prominence. This pattern is played out again and again through eternity. It seems unlikely that any Chaos God could ever truly be victorious, and it is unthinkable what might happen should such an event ever occur, but it certainly is not for lack of trying. When the gods battle, the Immaterium shakes and warp storms rage across the galaxy. Within the realm of chaos, hordes of demons are sent forth to do their creators' biddings, and the lands of the gods strain and heave at each other in physical assault. Possessed of personality and intelligence, the demons of the Chaos God aspire to draw favor from their master, and often launch their own attacks in the domains of rival demons. The armies of the gods pour from one territory to another in a ceaseless frenzy of invasion and defense. As intrigue, tricks, and bait lead forces into traps, elsewhere packs of forged and opposing sides join together mid-battle with a common cause. It is never long, however, before the merest possibility of advantage arises, and the brief cessation of open warfare between two parties is readily abandoned. Because of this, vast swaths of the Immaterium are in a constant state of flux, every moment a new territory won or lost. When an invading army emerges victorious, they immediately set to work on turning the ravaged battlefield into part of their god's realm, molding the raw entropy of that section of the Warp into whatever pleases their master. From time to time, there arises a being, place, object, or event in the material universe that attracts the attention of all the gods of chaos. So important is this new element, so desired by the ruinous powers, or so dangerous to their shared ambitions, that all rivalry is temporarily put aside in order to take advantage of this particular opportunity or thwart the threat it presents. In such an instance, the gods will work together, and the galaxy trembles before their combined power as chaos undivided. For mankind, the most significant example of this was the rise of the Emperor. During this period, the Chaos God set out to bring about the master of mankind's downfall, beginning with the spiriting away of his infant Primarchs from the laboratory on Terra, culminating in the spiritual corruption of half their number and the civil wars of the Horus Heresy. Other events have led to briefer cessations of conflict in the realm of chaos, particularly promising Black Crusades, for example, or the extermination or birth of a new race. Such interest in mortal affairs is fleeting, and as soon as their objective is achieved, the gods resume their great game. Sometimes treaties will be broken even before their mutual goals are met, with one god or another, or all four, overstepping the bounds of their agreement and attempting to usurp their rivals. Once again, the realm of chaos will thunder to the march of the demonic legions, and their age-old feuds will spill over into the domains of real space.